The Genesis G580 pulled up outside Gemma Harrison's office at exactly 9:47 p.m, black and silent like a predator. She didn't notice it at first. She was too busy staring at the eviction notice taped to her agency's glass door, her reflection distorted in the cheap material, her goddess locks falling loose from the bun she'd twisted that morning, 27 years old, devastatingly beautiful even in exhaustion, and watching everything she'd built in Seoul crumble into nothing. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Gemma Harrison. The voice was professional, female, Korean. Hyun Corp would like to schedule a pitch meeting. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Are you available? Gemma's heart stopped. Hyun Corp. The tech giant that made Samsung look small. The company that could save her agency with a single contract or destroy it with a single rejection. Yes, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Yes, I'm available. Excellent. Mr. Hyun is looking forward to, or meeting you personally. The line went dead. Gemma stood there, phone pressed to her ear, staring at that black car, idling across the street. The back door opened. A man stepped out, tall and sharp, in a charcoal Dolce & Gabbana suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His hair fell past his shoulders, sleek and dark, catching the streetlight. When he turned slightly, she saw it. A dragon tattoo curving up his neck from beneath his collar. Black and gold scales that seemed to move in the light. He looked directly at her window. For 3 seconds, their eyes met across the distance. Then he smiled, got back in the car, and drove away. Welcome back, my lovely family. Thank you so much for all the sweet comments and likes on every post. Thank you for trusting this channel. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching. Gemma's hands were shaking. She called Minji, her business partner and only remaining employee. We got a meeting with Hyun Corp. Minji screamed so loud. Gemma had to pull the phone away from her ear. Are you serious? Gemma, that's everything. How did this even happen? I don't know. Gemma was still staring at the spot where the car had been. But something feels wrong about the timing. Wrong? This is a miracle. Maybe. Or it was something else. Something that made her stomach twist with a feeling she couldn't name. She locked up the office and walked to her tiny Hongdae apartment. And the entire way there, she felt like someone was watching her. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about that man with the dragon tattoo, the way he'd looked at her like he knew her. Around 2 a.m, she gave up and opened her laptop, searching for information about Hyun Corp's CEO, Jun Hyun, 30 years old, built a tech empire from nothing in less than a decade. No scandals, no public relationships, no social media presence. Just a series of photographs from business conferences where he stood apart from everyone else. Beautiful and untouchable. That dragon tattoo visible in every shot. She zoomed in on one photo. His face was sharp, almost cruel in its perfection. But there was something familiar about his eyes. Something that made her chest ache with a memory she couldn't quite grasp. She fell asleep with her laptop still open, and dreamed of cheap soju and string lights and a promise she'd forgotten. The next morning, Gemma stood in front of her closet, trying to decide who she needed to be. She chose a cream Zimmermann dress that made her dark skin glow, styled her locks into an elegant updo, and painted her lips deep red. In the mirror, she looked powerful. She didn't feel powerful. She felt like she was walking into something she didn't understand. Minji met her outside the Hyun Corp building in Gangnam. 63 floors of glass and steel that reflected the sky like a mirror. I looked up the CEO last night, Minji said as they walked through the lobby. He's gorgeous, like illegally. Gorgeous. We're here for business, not to drool over the client. Can't I do both? The elevator took them to the 60th floor. Executive level. Everything was precision and power. White marble, minimalist Korean art, floor-to-ceiling windows that made Seoul look like a toy city spread out below. A young woman in a black suit greeted them with a bow. Ms. Harrison, Ms. Park, Mr. Hyun will see you now. Gemma's pulse was hammering in her throat. This was it. Save the agency or lose everything. The assistant opened the door to a massive corner office, and Gemma's breath caught. He was standing with his back to them, silhouetted against the windows, hands in his pockets. When he turned around, time fractured. She knew that face, not from the business photos, from somewhere older, somewhere buried under 7 years of trying to build a life in a foreign city. His eyes met hers, and she saw recognition there, saw something that looked like relief and hunger and vindication all at once. "Gemma Harrison," he said, and his voice was deeper than she remembered, richer, like whiskey and smoke. "It's been a long time." The room tilted. Minji was looking between them, confused, but Gemma couldn't look away from him. The sharp jawline, the way his hair fell perfectly, even though it was long enough to be impractical. The dragon tattoo that started behind his right ear and curved down his neck like it was claiming him. And his hands, when he pulled them from his pockets, she saw the dragon's claws wrapped around his fingers, scales covering the backs of his hands in intricate detail. "June." Her voice came out broken. "June Hyun." He smiled then, and it was devastating. "You remember." She couldn't breathe. 7 years ago. The broke international student she'd tutored in English. The boy who barely had enough money for food, who'd met her at cheap restaurants and studied in the library until it closed. The boy who'd looked at her like she was everything good in a world. That had been cruel to him. Minji whispered, "You two know each other." Jun Hyun walked toward them slowly, deliberately, and Gemma felt like prey being stalked. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell his cologne something expensive and cedar dark. "We made a promise, Gemma. Do you remember that too?" And suddenly she did. The pojangmatcha on a warm night after graduation, both of them drunk on soju and the terror of the future. He'd been going back to Korea. She'd been staying to build her career. They'd laughed about how they'd probably never see each other again. "What if we're both still single at 30? He'd said. She thought he was joking. "Then I guess we'll have to marry each other." They'd shaken hands. She'd forgotten about it the next day. Apparently he hadn't. "That was 7 years ago," she said. "We were kids. We were drunk." "You were drunk," Jun Hyun said quietly. "I was sober, and I meant every word." He walked to his desk, pulled out a black folder and slid it toward her. 1,095 days, Gemma. That's how long until you turn 30. But I couldn't wait any more. Her hands trembled as she opened the folder. The first page was a photograph of them from that night. Her laughing. Him looking at her, with an expression that made her chest hurt. She didn't remember anyone taking this photo. The second page made her blood run cold. Project Gemma. Timeline and execution strategy. It was a business plan. For her. Dates, strategies, investments, all laid out with the clinical precision of a corporate acquisition. Minji leaned over her shoulder and gasped. "This is... Gemma, this is a plan to make sure we'd meet again," Jun Hyun finished. His voice was calm, almost casual. "To make sure that when we did, you'd need me." Gemma's vision blurred. She flipped through the pages. Year by year, he'd documented everything. How he'd built his company, how he'd tracked her career, how he'd slowly, methodically created the conditions that would make her agency fail. The building she rented, he'd bought it 2 years ago. The clients who'd left, they'd been offered deals she couldn't match by shell companies that all traced back to Hyun Corp. The investors who'd pulled out, he had bought them out. Every struggle, every late night crying over bills she couldn't pay, every moment she'd felt like she was drowning, he'd orchestrated all of it. "You destroyed my career," she whispered. "You've been destroying it for years." "I created obstacles," Jun Hyun said. He moved closer, and she forced herself not to step back. "Obstacles you could overcome with the right support. I made sure you'd need me, yes, but I also made sure I'd be worthy of you when you did." "This is insane," her voice was rising. "This is psychotic. You You can't just manipulate someone's entire life because of a drunk promise. It wasn't drunk for me. His composure cracked just slightly, something desperate flashing in his eyes. It was the only real thing I had, Gemma. You were kind to me when I had nothing. You treated me like I mattered. And when you made that promise, even as a joke, it gave me something to build toward, someone to become worthy of. Minji had backed toward the door, clearly uncomfortable. Gemma wanted to run too, but her legs wouldn't move. She was trapped between fury and something else, something she didn't want to name. I spent 10 years becoming this, Jun Hyun continued, gesturing to the office, to himself. 10 years building an empire so that when I come back for you, you'd never have to worry about money or security or anything except your art. And yes, I manipulated circumstances. Yes, I made sure you'd need me, because I couldn't risk leaving it to chance. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. I'm not going to apologize for fighting for what I want. And I've wanted you since I was 24 years old. Gemma's throat was tight. You're obsessed. Yes. No hesitation, no shame. Completely. This isn't love, June. This is control. Something shifted in his expression, something that might have been pain. Then teach me the difference, because I don't know how to want you less, and I've tried. The silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. Minji cleared her throat. Maybe we should reschedule this meeting. But Jun Hyun wasn't looking at Minji. He was looking at Gemma like she was the only person in the world. I want to show you something. Will you come with me? She should have said no, should have walked out and never looked back. But there was something in his voice, something vulnerable beneath all that control, that made her nod. He led her to a door in the corner of his office, unlocked it with his fingerprint. Inside was a smaller room, windowless, lit by soft gallery lighting, and on the wall was a portrait of her, 6 feet tall, oil on canvas, museum quality. Her, at 23, laughing at something off canvas, painted in colours so vivid she looked alive. The artist had captured something she'd never seen in her own face. Joy, pure and uncomplicated. I commissioned this 5 years ago, Jun Hyun said quietly behind her, from a photo I took without you knowing. I needed to remember why I was building all of this. Gemma couldn't speak, couldn't look away from her own face, young and unaware that someone was documenting her existence like she was something precious. Beneath the portrait was a timeline covering the entire wall, every major moment of his life marked with notes about how it connected to her. First million. Now I can afford to take her to dinner. First building. Now I can give her security. Hyuncorp goes public. Now I'm worthy. You're obsessed, she said again, but this time it came out softer. I know. His voice cracked. I know it's wrong. I know I should have just asked you out like a normal person, but I was terrified, Gemma. Terrified that if I showed up after 7 years and you didn't remember me, didn't care, it would destroy everything I'd built myself into. She finally turned to look at him. His perfect composure was gone now, his hands clenched at his sides, his jaw tight. So I made myself necessary instead of making myself vulnerable. And I'd do it again because the thought of you with someone else, the thought of losing you to chance or bad timing or... He stopped, swallowed hard. I can't lose you. You never had me, Gemma whispered. Then let me earn you. He moved closer, stopping just inches away, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. Give me a chance to prove that this isn't just an obsession, that I built something real, by destroying my career, by making sure we'd meet again, by making sure that when we did, I could give you everything you've ever wanted. How do you know what I want? His smile was sad. Because I've been paying attention for, 10 years, Gemma. I know you work until 3 a.m. when you're stressed. I know you prefer hand-drawn sketches to digital. I know you want to create fashion that makes women feel powerful, not just beautiful. I know because I've been watching, learning, and preparing for this moment since the day you left. She should have been terrified, should have run. But standing there in that gallery of his obsession, looking at the portrait of herself laughing, seeing the evidence of 10 years spent thinking about her, she felt something else, something dangerous. "I need time," she said finally. "I need to think. Take all the time you need." But his voice was tight, like the words cost him. "But Gemma, the lease on your building expires in 30 days. Your agency will close unless someone invests, and I'm the only one offering." The manipulation was blatant now, undisguised. Choose me, or lose everything. She turned and walked out without another word, Minji scrambling to follow. In the elevator, Minji said, "That was the most romantic and terrifying thing I've ever witnessed." Gemma couldn't answer. She was shaking too hard. That night, Gemma couldn't sleep. She lay in her apartment staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what she'd learned. Jun Hyun had spent 10 years orchestrating their reunion, 10 years destroying her career so he could save it, 10 years becoming someone powerful enough that she couldn't say no. It was manipulation. It was controlled. It was an obsession. But it was also devotion on a scale she'd never imagined possible. Around 2 a.m., someone knocked on her door. She knew who it was before she opened it. Jun Hyun stood in her hallway, hair loose around his shoulders, wearing a simple black shirt that made the dragon tattoo on his neck look even more vivid. He looked exhausted, human in a way he hadn't in his office. "I couldn't leave it like that," he said. "I couldn't let you think." He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "Can I come in?" She should have said no. Instead, she stepped aside. Her apartment was tiny compared to his office, cramped and cluttered with fabric samples and sketches. He looked around like he was memorizing everything, and she realized he probably already knew what it looked like. He'd probably seen photos, reports, documentation of her entire life. "How long have you been watching me?" she asked. "Since the day you arrived in Seoul." No hesitation. "I had someone send me updates once a month. Your location, your career, whether you were seeing anyone. I needed to know you were safe. That's not protection, June. That's surveillance. I know." He turned to face her, and she saw the anguish in his eyes. "I know the difference now. But when I started, I told myself it was just making sure you were okay, and then it became checking on your career, and then it became tracking your clients, and then it became..." He stopped. "It became an obsession. You're right. I can't defend it." Gemma crossed her arms. "Then why are you here?" "Because I need you to understand something." He stepped closer, and she saw his hands were shaking. "Everything I did, every manipulation, every control, it all came from the same place. You gave me hope when I had nothing, Gemma. You were kind to a broke foreign student who could barely speak English. You treated me like I mattered when everyone else treated me like I was invisible." She remembered him at 24, thin and tired, working 3 jobs while studying full-time. She'd tutored him for free because he couldn't afford to pay her. She'd bought him dinner and pretended she'd ordered too much so he wouldn't feel like charity. She'd been kind because it cost her nothing and meant everything to him. "That promise we made," Jun Hyun continued, "it was a joke to you. But to me, it was the first time anyone had ever looked at me and seen a future worth having, so I held on to it. I built myself into someone worthy of it, and yes, I manipulated circumstances to make sure we'd meet again, but I did it because losing you to chance felt like dying." "You're asking me to forgive stalking," Gemma said. "To forgive years of manipulation." "No." His voice was firm. "I'm asking you to let me prove that I can do better, that I can love you without controlling you. But I need you to teach me how, because I don't know, Gemma. All I know is empire building and strategy, and making sure I never lose what matters." She wanted to be angry, wanted to throw him out and never see him again, but looking at him standing in her tiny apartment, vulnerable and desperate, she couldn't. "Show me," she said finally. "Show me everything. No more secrets." Relief flooded his face. Everything, he promised. He pulled out his phone, handed it to her. My calendar, my emails, my messages, all of it. See for yourself. She scrolled through his life, and what she found made her throat tight. Meetings with investors specifically focused on funding black women in creative industries. Donations to art programs, anonymous scholarships, and buried in his notes, a folder labelled "For Gemma's Eyes Only." She opened it. Inside were documents detailing a program called the Harrison Initiative, a fund that invested in women entrepreneurs globally, specifically targeting those who'd been denied traditional funding. Over $500 million deployed in 10 years. Thousands of women helped. You did this. Her voice was barely audible. I built it thinking about you, about how hard you had to fight for everything. I wanted to create a world where women like you didn't have to struggle the way you have. He paused. And maybe I hoped that when you found out, you'd understand that my obsession wasn't just selfish, that I tried to do something good with it. Gemma's hands were shaking. June! I know it doesn't excuse the manipulation. I know it doesn't make what I did to your career, okay? But I needed you to see that I'm not just some controlling monster. I'm someone who loves you so much it became the foundation of everything I built. She looked up at him, this beautiful, damaged man who'd spent 10 years becoming someone he thought she'd choose. I need time, she said again, but I'll think about it. He nodded, turned to leave. At the door, he stopped. Gemma, thank you for not hating me. I didn't say I don't hate you, but you didn't throw me out. That's enough for now. After he left, Gemma sat on her floor, surrounded by evidence of his obsession and his devotion, and tried to figure out which one mattered more. The next morning, Minji arrived with coffee and determination. Okay, we need to talk about what happens next. Do we take his money? Do we run? Do we call the police? I don't know, Gemma admitted. Part of me wants to take everything he's offering and pretend the manipulation never happened. Part of me wants to destroy him for what he did. And the other part? Gemma was quiet for a long moment. The other part wants to know what he'd do if I said yes. Before Minji could respond, Gemma's phone exploded with notifications. Her social media, her email, everything flooding with messages. She opened Instagram and her blood turned to ice. Someone had posted screenshots of internal documents from her agency, claiming she'd stolen designs from Korean artists. The accusations were detailed, specific, and completely fabricated. But they looked real. They looked damning. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Minji was reading over her shoulder, her face pale. Gemma, who would... Lee Sang-woo. The name came out like poison. The rival CEO, who'd been trying to acquire her agency for 2 years. She'd rejected him because his company was known for exploiting artists, stealing credit, destroying careers. He'd smiled when she'd turned him down and said, "You'll regret that." Apparently, he'd meant it. Her phone rang. June Hyun. She answered with shaking hands. "I saw," he said, before she could speak. His voice was cold, lethal, in a way she'd never heard before. "I'm handling it. June, he's accusing me of plagiarism. This could end my career. It won't. I promise you, Gemma, it won't. How can you possibly? Because I'm about to show you exactly what I'm capable of. When someone threatens what's mine, stay home. Don't talk to anyone. I'll call you in 6 hours." He hung up. Gemma stared at her phone, and Minji said quietly, "Should we be scared?" "I think Lee Sang-woo should be scared." For the next 6 hours, Gemma watched her phone obsessively, watching as the accusations spread across social media, as news outlets picked up the story, as her career dissolved in real time. Minji tried to comfort her, but there was nothing to say. This was exactly the kind of scandal that destroyed people. Then, at exactly 2 p.m., everything changed. A press conference appeared on every major news site. Hyun Corp's legal team, standing in front of cameras, presenting evidence that the documents were fabricated. Digital forensics showing they'd been created 3 days ago. email records proving Lee Sang-woo had paid someone to create them, financial documentation of the transaction. The accusations against Gemma were retracted within minutes. Apologies flooded her inbox. News outlets scrambled to correct their stories. But Jun Hyun wasn't done. Over the next 3 hours, Gemma watched in real time as he systematically destroyed Lee Sang-woo's life. Hyun Corp pulled all investments from Sang-woo's company. Other investors followed. Stock prices plummeted. The board called an emergency meeting. Criminal investigations were announced. By evening, Lee Sang-woo's company was collapsing and he'd been forced to resign. Gemma felt sick, awed, terrified. At 6 p.m, Jun Hyun appeared at her door again. This time he looked dangerous, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. "It's done. He'll never touch you again." "You destroyed him in one day," Gemma whispered. "Yes. No. Apology. No regret. He tried to destroy you. What did you expect me to do? Let me fight my own battles." "Why?" He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "When I can end them before they begin. When I have the power to make sure no one ever hurts you." "Because I'm not yours to protect." She was shouting now, all the fear and anger of the day exploding. "I'm not a possession you get to guard and control. You think I don't know that?" His voice rose to match hers. "You think I don't know how wrong this is? How obsessive and controlling and completely insane? Then why? Because I love you." The words came out raw, desperate. "I love you in a way that makes me want to burn down anyone who hurts you. I love you in a way that makes strategy and manipulation feel like survival. I love you so much that the thought of you suffering for even a moment makes me want to destroy the world." He ran his hands through his hair, and she saw they were shaking. "I know it's not healthy. I know it's not normal. But it's all I have, Gemma. This obsessive, controlling love is the only way I know how to care about someone. And I'm asking you, begging you to teach me how to do it better. Because I can't lose you, and I can't keep hurting you, and I don't know how to love you any other way." Tears were streaming down his face now, his perfect composure completely shattered. "Please," he whispered. "Please don't give up on me yet." Gemma's chest was tight, her own tears hot on her cheeks. She closed the distance between them and kissed him. It was desperate and furious, and everything they'd been holding back. His hands tangled in her locks, pulling her closer, and she grabbed his shirt, feeling the hard muscle beneath, feeling the dragon scales she knew covered his chest. He tasted like mint and desperation, and when they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she said, "I'm not forgiving you. I know. I'm not saying this is okay. I know. But I need to understand. I need to see everything. The real you, not just the empire you built." He nodded, and for the first time since she had walked into his office, she saw hope in his eyes. "Everything," he promised. "No more secrets." He took her back to Hyun Corp that night, to his private office, and he showed her the dragon. The tattoo started at his neck, but that was just the beginning. When he unbuttoned his shirt, she saw the full piece, a massive Korean dragon, sprawling across his chest, breathing silver flames that spread across his ribs, scales so detailed they looked real. And there, hidden in the flames over his heart, were her initials, G.H. "I got the first piece the week you left Korea," he said quietly. "The neck. A reminder that I was changing, becoming something different. Every year after, on the anniversary of our promise, I added more. The hands, the chest, the flames. It's not finished yet." She traced the dragon with her fingers, feeling his heartbeat beneath the ink. "What's missing?" "The tail. It's supposed to end here." He touched his lower back. "But I made a promise to myself that I'd only finish it on our wedding day." "You're that sure I'll marry you?" "No." His voice was honest, vulnerable. "But I'm that hopeful." She looked up at him, at this beautiful, obsessive man who'd tattooed himself as hers before she'd even known. "Show me the rest. Show me everything you've built." He did. Over the next hours, he walked her through his empire, not just Hyun Corp, but all of it. the Harrison Initiative with its thousands of success stories, the tech innovations designed specifically to help creative professionals, the investments in art programs and scholarships and support systems for underrepresented artists. I built all of this thinking about you, he said. Every decision, every investment, every program. I kept asking myself, what would Gemma need? What would make her life easier? What would create a world where someone like her could thrive? You built an empire for me, she whispered. I built an empire because of you. He turned to face her. You gave me a reason to become something more than a broke student. You made me believe I could be someone who mattered. And I tried God. I tried so hard to become someone worthy of the kindness you showed me. Gemma felt something shift in her chest, something that felt dangerously like forgiveness. I need conditions, she said finally. If we're going to do this, if I'm going to even consider. She stopped, took a breath. I need you to prove you can love me without controlling me. Anything. She pulled out her phone, opened a document she'd been working on. I had a lawyer draw this up. It's a contract, conditions for moving forward. He took her phone, read through it carefully. She watched his face change as he processed what she was asking. Therapy for both of them, weekly sessions. No business decisions about her career without her explicit approval. Equal partnership in all ventures. And the big one, he'd transfer 30% ownership of Hyun Corp to her, making her the second largest shareholder. You want control of my company, he said quietly. I want proof that you trust me, that if you ever cross a line again, I have the power to stop you. He was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded. Done. All of it. Just like that? Just like that. He looked up at her, and she saw fear in his eyes. Because you're right. I need someone to stop me when I go too far. I need you to have that power because I don't trust myself not to become the monster I'm afraid of being. Gemma felt tears burning her eyes again. You're going to therapy. Every week, I promise. You're not making decisions about my career without me. Never again. And you're giving me legal authority to override you. It's already done. My lawyers are drawing up the papers tonight. She searched his face, looking for deception, for manipulation, but all she saw was desperate sincerity. Why? She whispered. Why are you agreeing to all of this? Because losing you is worse than losing control. His voice cracked. Because I've spent 10 years building power, and none of it matters if you walk away. Because I love you more than I love my empire, and that terrifies me, but it's the truth. Gemma pulled him close, and they stood there in his office overlooking Seoul, holding on to each other like they were both drowning. I'm choosing you, she said, against his chest. But June, if you ever manipulate me again, if you ever try to control my life without my consent, I'm gone. Do you understand? I understand. I mean it. One chance, that's all you get. That's all I need, he promised. 3 months later, Gemma sat in her new office at Hyun Corp headquarters, surrounded by sketches and fabric samples, and tried to process how much her life had changed. She was the second largest shareholder of a tech empire. She ran the Harrison Initiative, deploying millions to help women entrepreneurs. And she was engaged to a man who'd spent 10 years obsessing over her. It wasn't perfect. Jun Hyun still struggled with his need to control everything. She'd caught him trying to schedule her meetings without asking, had to remind him that she could handle her own career. But he was trying. They went to therapy every week, sometimes together, sometimes separately. He was learning that love didn't require manipulation, and she was learning that his obsession came from a place of deep trauma and fear of loss. Minji walked in carrying coffee. Your 2 p.m. is here, the designer from Lagos who wants funding. Perfect, send her in. As she worked, Gemma felt a peace she'd never experienced before. This was what Jun Hyun had been building, not just wealth, but opportunity. A world where someone like her could thrive without compromise. That evening, she found Jun Hyun in his office, and he looked up with that smile that still made her heart race. How was your day? Good. We funded 3 new designers. One of them cried. You're changing lives. He stood, walked around his desk to her. The dragon on his neck caught the light as he moved. Just like you changed mine. She touched the tattoo gently. Do you regret it? The obsession, the manipulation, all those years planning. I regret hurting you. I regret making you feel trapped. He covered her hand with his. But I don't regret loving you. Even if I did it wrong, even if I made terrible choices, I don't regret that you became the centre of my world. We're getting married in 3 months, Gemma said. Are you going to finish the tattoo? The day you become my wife, I'll finish it. He pulled her close. And then I'll finally be complete. She kissed him, and it was soft, tender, nothing like those first desperate kisses. This was contentment. This was choosing each other with full knowledge of their flaws. Her phone buzzed. She pulled away to check it, and her breath caught. An email from the Seoul Fashion Council. They wanted to feature her work in their annual showcase. It was the opportunity she'd been dreaming about for 7 years. Jun Hyun was watching her face. What is it? I got into the Fashion Council showcase. Her voice was shaking. They want a full collection. Gemma, that's incredible. He lifted her, spinning her around, and she laughed, feeling joy spread through her chest like sunlight. I need to design 12 pieces in 2 months, she said when he set her down. I need to. She stopped, looked at him. And you're not going to try to help me, are you? I'm going to watch you do it yourself and be amazed by you. He kissed her forehead. Like I've been doing for 10 years. The next 2 months were chaos. Gemma barely slept, working 18-hour days, designing, sourcing fabric, overseeing production. Jun Hyun supported her by staying out of her way, bringing her food when she forgot to eat, holding her when she cried from exhaustion. He kept his promise of no interference, no manipulation, just presence. The night before the showcase, she finished the last piece at 3 a.m. Jun Hyun found her asleep at her workstation, surrounded by gorgeous clothes that would make her reputation. He carried her to bed without waking her. The showcase was transcendent. Her collection, inspired by the intersection of her African heritage and Korean influence, received a standing ovation. Buyers fought over pieces. Fashion magazines requested interviews. By the end of the night, Gemma had established herself as a major voice in Seoul's fashion scene. Jun Hyun watched from the audience, and when their eyes met across the room, she saw pride there. Pure, uncomplicated pride, with no need for control. After the showcase, he took her to the Han River, to a spot where they could see the city lights reflected in the water. I have something for you, he said. He handed her a small box. Inside was a USB drive. What is this? Every file I ever kept on you, every photograph, every report, every piece of surveillance. His voice was quiet. I want you to delete them, all of it. I don't need documentation anymore. I have you. Gemma held the drive, feeling its weight. Are you sure? I'm sure. He cupped her face. I spent 10 years collecting evidence that you existed, proof that you were real and worth everything I built. But I don't need proof anymore. I have the reality, and she's more extraordinary than anything I could have documented. She threw the USB drive into the river. They watched it sink into the dark water, taking 10 years of obsession with it. There, she said. Now you'll have to remember me, the normal way. I've been doing that for 10 years already. He pulled her close. But this version is better. This version talks back. She laughed against his chest. Are you ready for our wedding? I've been ready since I was 24 years old. The wedding was 3 weeks later, a fusion of Korean and African traditions. Gemma wore a dress of her own design, white silk with traditional Korean embroidery and African print accents. Jun Hyun wore a traditional hanbok, modified with modern cuts, his hair perfect, his dragon tattoo visible at his collar. But the moment everyone talked about afterward was when he removed his shirt before the ceremony, in a private room with just Gemma and the photographer. The dragon was finally complete. The tail ended at his lower back, and woven into the final piece was a phoenix rising, wings spread, rendered in colours that matched Gemma's skin tone. You added me, she whispered, tracing the phoenix. You complete me, he said simply. The dragon was always searching, Now it's found what it was looking for. Their vows weren't traditional. His, "I'll love you without caging you, and when I fail, because I will fail, I'll let you remind me. I'll trust you to stop me when I go too far. I'll spend every day becoming someone worthy of the choice you made." Hers, "I'll love you without fear, and when you stumble, I'll catch you. I'll see past the empire to the boy who promised me forever in a pojangmatcha. I'll choose you every day, not because I have to, but because I want to." When they kissed, Seoul's skyline spread out behind them through floor-to-ceiling windows, a city where a broke student had become an emperor, and a forgotten promise had become destiny. 2 years later, Gemma stood in that same spot, 29 years old and 7 months pregnant, looking out at the city she had conquered. The Harrison Initiative had helped over 5,000 women. Her fashion line was internationally recognized, and the man who'd spent 10 years obsessing over her had learned to love her without controlling her. Mostly. She found his journal on his desk. He still kept one, writing to her every day, even though she was right there. She opened it to today's entry, and tears filled her eyes. Day 4,380. She chose me. Not because I forced circumstances, not because I manipulated her world, but because she wanted to. I spent 10 years building an empire to become worthy of her, but she made me realize I was always worthy. I just needed to learn that love isn't about control, it's about trust. Today, she told me we're having a daughter. I'm terrified. What if I try to control her life the way I tried to control Gemma's? What if this obsessive love destroys what it's meant to protect? But Gemma says we'll figure it out together. She says, "Our daughter will teach me what Gemma has been teaching me, that love means letting go. I'm still learning. I'll probably always be learning, but for the first time in 10 years, I'm not planning 10 steps ahead. I'm just here, with her, with our future, and it's enough. It's everything." Gemma was crying when Jun Hyun walked in. He saw the journal, saw her tears, and pulled her close. "You weren't supposed to read that yet. You're still writing to me. Some habits are worth keeping." He placed his hand on her stomach, feeling their daughter kick. "Are you happy?" "Terrifyingly happy." She looked up at him. "Do you ever regret it? The way we started?" He was quiet for a moment. "I regret the pain I caused. I regret making you feel trapped. But I don't regret fighting for you, even if I fought the wrong way." He kissed her forehead. "You taught me that love is about trust, not control. That took time, but it was worth learning. We're going to mess up our daughter, you know, with your obsessive tendencies and my trust issues. Probably," he smiled, "but we'll mess her up together. And we'll teach her that love is complicated and imperfect and worth fighting for anyway." Gemma leaned into him, feeling safe and chosen and free all at once. "I love you, Jun Hyun, even with all your impossible obsessive ways. I love you, Gemma Harrison Hyun, even though you forgot our promise and made me spend 10 years becoming worthy of you. You were always worthy," she said softly. "You just needed time to see it." Through the window, Seoul sparkled beneath them, a city of second chances and impossible love stories. Somewhere in that city, a young woman was struggling with her business, wondering if she'd ever make it. And because of Gemma, because of the initiative Jun Hyun had built out of obsession and devotion, that woman would get the funding she needed. She'd get her chance. Some promises are too powerful to forget. Some people are worth spending a lifetime remembering. Jun Hyun spent 10 years making sure Gemma couldn't forget their pact. In the end, she spent the rest of her life making sure he knew he was always worth remembering, not because of the empire he built, not because of the power he wielded, but because of the broken boy who'd loved her so completely he'd tattooed himself as hers before she even knew. Their daughter would grow up hearing the story of how they met, how they almost destroyed each other, how they chose each other anyway. She'd learn that love is complicated and messy and sometimes obsessive. She'd learn that people can change, that control can transform into trust, that devotion can be healthy when it's mutual, and maybe one day she'd make her own impossible promise. Maybe she'd find someone worth building an empire for. Maybe she'd learn that the best love stories are the ones that start wrong and become right through work and choice and the daily decision to see each other fully. Gemma kissed Jun Hyun as the sun set over Seoul, and she thought about that drunk promise in a Pojang matcha 7 years ago. She'd laughed it off. He'd held onto it like a lifeline, and somehow, impossibly, they'd both been right. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. Your support means everything to this channel. If this story made you feel something, if it kept you glued to your screen, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what you thought. Did Jun Hyun's devotion cross a line? Or was it the ultimate romantic gesture? I want to know what you think, and if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now for more stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about love. The end.